get right into the conversation, and that means that Jane and Mike and Ashley are making their way to the podium. And I did some research, and I found out in 1998, Pearl Jam won the award for the leading edge in philanthropy in National Philanthropy Day. So not only has Mike and Ashley been very philanthropic in all their work in Seattle and around the globe, but their band has also been very, very active in philanthropy. So please welcome Jane, Ashley, and Mike.
So I'm Jane Spearing, and I'm your moderator today. Thank you both Mike and Ashley for being here today. So you all know that Mike is the lead guitarist for Pearl Jam. I'm sure everybody knows that. And Ashley and I met several years ago when she and Mike were getting married. Instead of wedding gifts, they wanted to know how do they rally people around to their causes. And so instead of wedding gifts, they wanted contributions, which I think says a lot about them as individuals and as a couple and where they've been. They have been very busy this year, and so them taking time out of their day to be here with us is huge. Mike and Pearl Jam have a #1 album. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And Mike and Ashley are expecting their 3rd child this year. So, congratulations. Congratulations on both counts. That's
Thank
wonderful.
you very much.
So Mike and Ashley have come to philanthropy. Boy, that's tough. Are we okay? Microphones, okay. Starting off with Crohn's and Colitis Foundation. They've both been active in the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation of America, the Northwest chapter, for many years, both as spokespeople, as board members, as fundraisers, and event leaders. And that's, I think, where they started their philanthropy, but they've been involved in other philanthropic efforts around Seattle and actually nationwide and internationally through the Pearl Jam and their foundation. And some of their local causes, Treehouse, the Seattle Symphony, you are co-chairing KEXP's capital campaign to get their new home at the Seattle Center. So I just want to give you a little bit of that background and thank you for being here today. So I'm going to give you all a chance to ask questions, but me first, okay? So starting off with Pearl Jam, you have. I was listening to a radio interview, actually, of the band, and they talked about, well, how do you decide to get back together after 2 years? And my thought as I'm listening to it is they're always together. They've got Vitology Foundation. They're always busy doing stuff. So could you talk a little bit about the band and how they think about philanthropy, and then how you as individuals interact with the group, and then individually do your philanthropy?
Well, your insight is correct. We are always kind of together because we do our Vitology Foundation, and we, Jeff or Ed are always working on artwork for little projects, or our records to T-shirt designs to socks to anything, and we have about 30 employees roughly in our warehouse. We have our warehouse and our management team and. Oh my gosh! Fan club. There's a lot of stuff we have to keep running. So there's a business there that we have to account for, and how we decide what we're going to donate our money to and our time. Initially, it started as I would say, hey, I have Crohn's disease. I would love to do something for the local chapter of the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation in the Northwest, and you have to get the other band members excited about it, and being the good guys that they are, and kind of we're in a brotherhood. In a way, they're going to be receptive to something like that. And so what that entailed was we put a show on in Portland. It costs a lot of money to do that, and we've done it. And you have to do it again with Stone's organization or with Ed's organization, and put all of your efforts in doing a show for skate parks in Montana for Jeff's. He does that for local indigenous people, that Lakota tribes or things like that. So at any rate, the early model wasn't as efficient as we thought it could have been, and Nicole, our who works for Nicole Vandenberg, who helps us kind of vet these things, helped us come up with a new theory of how to donate money after. Instead of doing a show, raising money for one thing, we now take $2 from each ticket from our shows and we put it into the Vitology Foundation, and we all grab from that pool. And that includes my manager too, so there's 6 of us. But grab, we have X amount of dollars to give to our personal charities, and we don't have to kind of convince everybody else to do it.
Right.
And I still, bring things up to the guys and say, hey, this is a cool organization. Or Ed will bring up something about Haiti because he's involved with that. And Ashley and I got involved through some Haiti restoration projects via Ed.
But
kind of
basically, I mean, as far as the individual aspect of what Vitology does is that became the kind of helping pull to what we were doing in the community. So, first it was with the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation because we had these great mentors around us. I mean, the band has always been philanthropic in the community from day one. They've given back, whether it was a free show in the city or it was, for women's rights or whatever came up. They've just been involved in their community and wanting to give back. So when I came around and was dating Mike, I had just gotten a business degree. I didn't know what I was going to do, and I was very busy. And my husband had Crohn's disease at that point for a good 15 years, and he had never done anything about it. And so that became the natural fit. They were doing one of these annual concerts that they did. They used to do the individual ones, but they'd also do shows at the Key Arena. And they would pick 10 local charities. And, here's my husband with this debilitating disease. Why aren't we doing anything about this? And so we immediately called Nicole and started.
And she got tired of me complaining about it, too. So that's really where, I was definitely whining about my Crohn's disease. And it's like, let's do something about it and be proactive.
Why don't you talk a little bit about how you did encourage Mike to get involved with the Crohn's and Colitis?
Well, I just felt like he needed to have a connection to it. We can live alone with these things, whatever it is that we have individually, and it's very isolating, and you think that you're the worst case of it. And so that opportunity came up because the band already had this model. It's not the model today, but it was the model then. And so Nicole, their publicist, was super receptive, and we said, it was literally like, hey, we don't know who's doing anything about Crohn's and colitis because most people, even people in this room, probably don't know what that is, I'm going to go on the internet and I'm going to find a charity, and when I do, can you add this to the list of beneficiaries? And she said, of course, because they all knew what Mike had been through. And so I went online and I found our local chapter. There was only one real place at the time. It was the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation of America. I found the chapter called the 2.5 staffers that were working there at the time. Now we're a chapter of 9, maybe even more locally. This was 10 years ago, and they probably fell off their chair. We want to. Can you bring your staff to this show at the Key Arena? And by the way, we want to give you X amount of the proceeds.
That's very cool.
And that was how the relationship started.
That's great. Well, since this is about making a difference in front of your voice, Mike, do you want to share with us a little bit so people actually do know exactly what Crohn's disease is?
Well, yeah, it's a debilitating gastrointestinal disease, but it can go all the way from your butt up to here, and it's it's very painful sores. You got to immediately go to the bathroom. It hurts. It's embarrassing. It's I don't know how to explain it other than it really hurts, and it's devastating, and it can
It can kill you.
Yeah,
It's an autoimmune disease.
It is, yeah.
Of the colon.
Right, and it's basically your body's attacking your colon. That's what they kind of theorize about what it is. So I think it's stress related, knowing how I am, or how high I run at things. So there's a genetic component to it, but I think that's smaller.
For you.
Yeah. Oh, for me, passing it on.
No, maybe for you it's more stress related
for
than
sure,
genetic.
yeah.
But for a lot of people,
I got it when I was living in Los Angeles trying to make it in a band, and I was starving and just not, I was very much under a situation of uncomfortability and trying to follow my dreams down there and being constantly crushed. and ended up coming back to Seattle and with my tail between my legs subsequently, but then got into a band while I wasn't looking for it. And that's another story in itself. But,
right. But you have another band that does a fundraiser
yes.
every year for children that are attending camp.
Yeah, we do a fundraiser. The band is called Flight to Mars. And we do a fundraiser. This will be our 12th year, every year down at the Showbox. And we raise money for kids to go to Camp Oasis, which is in
Coleman. Seattle. It's Camp Coleman.
Camp Coleman, sorry. And Linda is a dear friend of ours and is part of that, Linda Hughes. And so it's just, I've been to these camps, and it's cool to see kids that have Crohn's and colitis interact with each other and cry with each other and go, oh, that's how you deal with that when you're in a bookstore and you can't find a bathroom. Or this guy was making fun of you at school and that's how you deal with it. Or it's really neat to see kids be kids because I know how shameful and debilitating this disease can be, and how you don't want to go outside and you don't even want to go anywhere. And certainly it's very empowering and very emotionally important to me to be around that and to see how these kids are dealing with it. So that's the Flight to Mars show does raise money for that.
And then also surrounding that, you've partnered with the Mariners.
Yes, we've done some bobbleheads, which I think look like me. I'm not sure.
I heard you do a stirring rendition of the Star Spangled Banner that's by Hendrix.
I do my best. I mean, Hendrix was my guy growing up, being a guitar player growing up in Seattle and seeing Woodstock. And my dad was a veteran, so there's all these, things that tied into that. And yeah, I do what I do, and it certainly is.
It's pretty mind-blowing. He won't toot his own horn. He's pretty good.
I'm stoked about it. Well, I was excited to do it. I'm excited to do it at a baseball game because the baseball, as we all know, has many, 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 many rules, and they were not receptive for a long time to having anyone other than just kind of somebody singing it, the Star Spangled Banner, and they were a little nervous about it. And I had done it for like a hockey, thing, and so I think they were receptive to it, and I think they've opened up their arms to a different interpretation of the Star Spangled Banner. And I think the players like it. They're like, oh, that totally. Raul Ibanez was like, that rocked, man. And I was like, you got all right. So
you have to have fun while you're doing your philanthropy. I mean, it's good to have fun while you're doing it,
Yeah.
And you've also done some significant advocacy. I mean, you worked with Christine Gregoire to get.
Yeah, there's a thing called the Equal Bathroom Access Law that, having Crohn's, you have to know where a bathroom is all the time. And I've had many, many nightmare experiences around Seattle of not being able to find one and paying the price for it. And, to get on the ferry or being downtown or being on the Ave or certain areas where you just have, as having Crohn's, not to go or you're kind of screwed, But, there's good places you can go, I would say, I like to throw out Starbucks is good for good. They're great. And I truly feel that because I've had to use it in those situations. And when you have to go immediately, it's wonderful to know that there's places like that. Part of the Equal Bathroom Access Act was it was based on this. It was called Megan's Law, right?
I think it was. I don't know if it was Megan's Law, but it was in the Midwest, and this young girl had been denied access to a bathroom. She was in an Old Navy. And she was trying to use the bathroom with her mother, and her mother was trying to explain, my daughter has this disease and she can't go, and she literally defecated herself because they refused to let her use the bathroom.
In a department store, which is totally embarrassing and awful. And
not to say that Old Navy's a bad place, but they have all these regulations, all these local businesses do. So this opened this opportunity for let's, make this never happen again. And so we were able to pass this with Christine Gregoire, and it came up. I mean, business owners were not excited about it.
It's a two.
There was some backlash too.
It's kind of hard because people don't want to let you use your bathroom because they think they're going to go in there and do drugs and there are cases when that happens. We're all aware of that. But you can't explain that when you're pleading, with your just all your integrity. It's like, please let me use your bathroom because I'm going to shit myself right now and it hurts.
So that's not in your word we hear every single time.
That's right.
This is what you get when
you're going to get this, and I'm the first guy with tattoos in here too, probably. So but I'm probably. But anyways,
and I know this is really important to you and significant, so thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
I know that's a very personal story for you. There are other causes, though, that I know that you are working about, and one of the areas that we've talked about is relief, so disaster relief. And Ashley, I know you especially have it's beyond the immediacy of this horrible thing happened. How do we go forward? Can you talk with us a little bit about how you think about that? I think it's a good perspective.
Well, so we're in a position where anytime there's been a major disaster, at least since I've been with Mike in the last 10 years, they've always come to our publicist, Nicole Vandenberg, whether it was Haiti, Indonesia, Sandy, and they say, can you please help support us, And so we always do. Like, it's a given. Those are horrible tragedies that happen, and we always find a way to participate in that. I think what Jane is referring to is because we have this interesting entity called Vitology Foundation, what typically happens is Nicole will come, she'll do her vetting for the band, and she'll come and she'll say, Haiti's a perfect example. This disaster just happened in Haiti. I think that you guys should stipulate X amount of dollars, each band member, let's say it's $20,000 per band member. How do you want that stipulated? Here are the 10 local organizations that are on the ground right now that we have vetted for you guys. This is the stuff they're doing. This organization is doing microloans. This organization is helping with, relief aid. This organization is helping with food. So each of the band guys will look through that, and they'll go to Nicole and they'll say, put, 10,000 to this, 5 to this, 5 to this. So when Haiti happened, everybody got on board right away. And we had been, everybody was aware of what was going on. And so I went to Nicole, Mike and I talked about it, and we went to Nicole and said, hey, look, it looks like we've already stipulated X amount of dollars to this for the initial relief that's going on there. But what's going to happen, in a year or two from now when those funds run out? What is going to be there for those people? And so we kind of just said, hey, find out what we can do then. Like, let's not give our portion right now. Let's save it, and let's give it in a year when they might need it, and everybody's already given to this initial relief. So that's just an interesting way that we've been able to, have a lot of impact, not just initially, but like throughout the process of something, So I think that's what you.
Yeah, that's a great perspective. Thanks.
Can I backtrack for 1 second? There's another organization we're involved in, which is Treehouse, and a friend of ours, Rena O'Brien, got us to go down and actually wrap presents at one time for kids, foster kids can go to Treehouse and get educational supplies, toys, and all sorts of really cool services throughout the year. So we got to go down and actually do that, and that was important, and we've been pretty involved in it since then. So it's actually the tangible aspect of doing something helped me get more inspired about it too.
Which I think that would be really great for you to talk about. You can give your money, but then you also spend a tremendous amount of time learning about organizations and doing things for them. You talked about a crafting part, part you do. Can you talk a little bit about, not only that you've got, your kids are still pretty little, you haven't put them on the board or anything, but how are you thinking about philanthropy with your kids?
My daughter's ready to get on any board right now.
She's 6.
Yeah. So we talk a lot about what we're doing, with our family and our kids, and our family gets dragged along to all of our, parents and everything always come to all of our events and luncheons, and, they know what's going on. A lot of this is just stuff we fell into, Treehouse came around, first it was youth care and then Treehouse because we were having kids, and, we don't want to see these tragedies that happen to children. We want to be proactive and, try to take care of a problem now versus pay for it later, is our philosophy in that. With our kids, a way that I was able to get them involved is every year, although this year will be much smaller due to baby 3, I host what I like to call a craft party on crack. For anybody in this
room. Not literally. It's very speedy though.
We will we'll do like these craft parties. They started in my house, and I've since had to rent a space. And we do it for Treehouse. And what I do is my daughter makes the poster for it, and we put it at our school, and we email it out to our friends. And we get, about 100 people, and we just ask the parents, please, bring a gift for Treehouse and, food for Northwest Harvest. And so it's something that we do at the holiday season, and it's just a way to get our community involved and my children excited about, my daughter used to be scared of it though. Like, she used to run up to her bedroom and hide when all these people would show up to do crafts. So, but
And that's a balance you've kind of got to, we've
Yeah.
discussed, is like how many people do we want to have over, and how much is it getting, is this good for our kids, or is it a distraction to them, or, there's a balance
he's
of
much
it.
better at pulling back. I'm much more like, let's get in there
Yeah.
now. So that's a nice thing that we can do for each other.
Good balancing act.
Yeah.
I like that. That's very great. And that's, I think, talking about, some of the smaller ways. I know that you hate to say no, as we said, that people come to you and you just say yes. In this room, you may not want to say that out loud. But, talking about some of the other, ways that, you not only donate time and money, but you sometimes the band will do a guitar, or you host events.
We'll sign a guitar, and that'll be given to an auction, to be, and people can bid it up, and that, or in the past, we're not going to do this as much anymore. It's kind of like meet me backstage kind of thing. We
need to get Mike's value back up.
They're making less available, but that's kind of a time thing, which gets a little crunchy when you're playing a show. So that's a little sometimes hard, but it's just try to think of creative ways to be proactive and give
And
back.
we talk about it all the time. I mean, we have conversations with Nicole, with each other. We've actually hired a good friend of ours to actually help us, because the amount of requests that Mike and I are personally getting has gotten so, not out of hand, but I mean, it's so much that it's just like something I can't manage with 2 kids and a third on the way anymore. So,
It's our friend Chris Adams, and he's very good. He's at that, and we need somebody
he's a fellow Crohn sufferer, and he helps us. And it's, the thing is we want to say yes to everything. I mean, they're all great causes. We live in such a beautiful community with so much opportunity to give and participate, which is why we live here. And we want to be able to figure it out. So do we give them an autographed CD? Do we do an auction for them? Is it something that we care passionately about? Do we get involved on the board or the committee?
Right, that's great. Okay, I'm going to give you all about a few minutes to ask some questions. Anybody have any questions? I still have mine, but I want to give a couple of minutes if people do have some questions. Anybody out there have anything?
I have a question.
All right.
When you compare what you give personally to what you give monetarily, which do you think has the biggest impact?
So repeating the question is, giving what you give monetarily compared to what you give personally, what's the relative?
Wow. It's probably easier to give monetarily, because that's not less of your time, and it depends. If I'm doing something in terms of awareness of things, and I'm going to be personally involved and be on the cover of Crohn's Advocate magazine, that, or be on Good Morning America, which luckily happened a little bit last 2 weeks ago, that's going to have a way larger impact than me donating $100,000 or whatever to that. So in terms of my celebrity and that helping. So I can't, it's hard to quantify. It depends on the situation.
Well, and I think it's also important to point out that, like, we don't have endless, Mike hates this word, we don't have endless coffers. I mean, like, Mike has to work hard for us to be able to give personally, and the band has to tour for us to be able to give from Vitology. So it's always weighing that. What's going to be the most impact here? Sometimes it's both, sometimes it's, one or the other. But I think you bring up a good point, because a lot of the publicity that he can bring to something, like when we're doing our work with the symphony, they like to put his name on there because it brings a whole new breath of fresh air, they feel, and that is more valuable to them than sometimes the check we can write,
So what are the things that excite you about philanthropy and advocacy? Because I kind of put those two together a bit. What are the things that get you to make it really, get you excited and want you to be, more involved?
I think I just feel good when I do it. It's not too complex of an answer. It's not. It's but out of that, I'll expand. Seeing. That's rock and roll right there. I made a living with that right there. My dad used to scream at me about that, but in my room. Playing the guitar when I was 11 years. Anyways, things that excite me are seeing things that actually work, seeing what Treehouses does with the money, or getting to be part of Club Ludo and seeing 2 types of music get together and be created, and the Crohn's foundation to going to the parks, going to not the park, but the park that's within the kids camp, you know, and watching the kids be in a rope swing, you know. Those are the things that are exciting to me, you know.
We did go stay in a cabin.
We did.
For 2 nights at Camp Coleman, and our regional director won't even stay there. So.
It's beautiful out there because, you know, I grew up in the Northwest. I grew up sailing to the San Juans with my parents, and I know what this is all about, and I know how beautiful the beaches are, and Friday Harbor, and up and down the north and south around here. So that's part of the smells and the sounds are all part of my DNA growing up here. So getting to be part of those camps is that's exciting to me too.
You did some PSAs around Crohn's and colitis, and so what sort of led you down that path and sort of got you to a place you were willing to sort of put yourself out there as taking a political stand, if you will?
I think it was my frustration with insurance companies and what I've had to deal with in terms of having Crohn's and being denied or having to shift our policies, and I'm pretty well off, and I'm not a kid from Alabama that has a single parent that's, you know, that gets kicked out of school for having to use the bathroom 20 times a day, which actually happened. So so I'm not, but so I'm wondering what they have to deal with comparatively to what I have to deal with. It's got to be insurmountable, the odds that are against kids or people that are in a less financial position than I am. It was also a request, a last request of my friend Jennifer Jaff, who ran, or both of our, Jennifer Jaff,
who ran Advocacy for Patients,
and she was a very much one of the most interesting, strong people I've ever met in terms of she was a lawyer who
was
brilliant, tirelessly fought for somebody that would call up patients' rights. She has a book called Handbook for
Know Your Rights,
which is a great Clash song too. But
the handbook's called Know Your Rights.
Know Your Rights.
Yes. And it's a you know, a handbook about insurance, but I mean PSAs.
This was her. She wanted me to do a public service announcement about
So this was a political one.
I
mean, Mike has over the years done PSAs that weren't political just for the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation because they asked and we did them. He did them. This was actually like a political campaign. Obama, which, you know, sorry if you're not an Obama fan, but we wanted to help re-elect him. And we wanted to be impactful. This actually has to do with your question. We didn't have, you know, the ability to make what we thought would be a substantial donation to his campaign. So we decided, let's do a PSA. So we got together with a good friend of ours, Jesse Dillon, who's Bob Dylan's oldest son and a really great filmmaker down in LA, and we put together a PSA campaign where Mike was filmed by him talking about the importance of the Affordable Care Act. And you know, mainly from our perspective because of the pre-existing condition clause. So that was what Mike spoke to. And
but part of the Flight to Mars, back to that went, a lot of that money, or part of a smaller amount of that went to advocacy
for patients.
So we had a pre-existing relationship with Jennifer Jaff prior to myself doing this.
We've been friends with her for over 10 years.
Yeah.
We helped her, pushed her towards starting her
And we met her through Nicole, and she just was the most inspiring woman.
Gloria Steinem.
Right, but via Nicole through that, I think. So.
And we do what Gloria Steinem asks us.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But that was a situation where we decided we will give, you know, Jesse Dillon said, I'll split the cost of the video. It was going to be $20,000. We said, great, this will be far more impactful than if we just took $10,000 and gave it to Obama's campaign. And, you know, there's backlash. When you get involved in politics, PSAs, anything, I mean, you're going to get backlash. And these guys have been standing up for what they believe in for a long time. And I'm proud of them for doing that, you know. But one of the things Jane and I talked about is that as musicians, they get told a lot, go back and just play your guitar. You don't know what you're talking about. But if Bill Gates talks about what he believes in, people don't say that to him. You know what I mean? Like, there's a little bit of a backlash to the rock star. Like, they don't know.
But we're also taxpayers, and we're all
and you're a very educated group of men.
We're U.S. citizens, and I grew up in Seattle in a relatively middle-class upbringing, and my parents were both well-educated, and my father worked for the city, and my mom was an art teacher, so there's what, whatever all that means, but I feel like I should be able to have a voice.
And they use
and will
that
continue
voice.
to use that.
That's why advocacy is important to us. We are willing to pay the price of the backlash to stand up for what we believe, because we live in a country where we get to do that, not to.
Yeah.
I don't know who said it in the interview that I listened to on the radio, but there's one of you said, with your band, you're going to get a little fiber in your diet, which I thought was great.
Probably Ed, or yeah, I would imagine you're going to get some, and he's very attuned to, in terms of what's right in his mind, and to the tyranny of the mind, and to corporate excess, to hurting people, to anything that's very much against the working class, or I think in his mind, he will speak out against, and will speak out a lot. And I love him for that. And he's just goes directly to what his heart says. And a lot of times, in terms of his lyrics to our songs, too.
I think it's fair to say, though, he likes to start dialogues. I mean, he's not just trying to stand from a pulpit and preach. I mean, I've heard him on stage when fans were booing him for something he believed in, and saying, great, I want to start a dialogue with you.
And we're getting pelted with nickels and coins, and it was an interesting, scary time to be booed on stage and have a crowd turn on you, your own crowd. So, but he wants a dialogue out of it.
I think I saw a question back there. Yes, do you have a question?
Yeah, I think it's terrific that you talk to amongst your friends at parties and start conversations. And I was curious, could you tell us a couple stories about conversations you started and where they led to that would be informative?
In terms of myself, or of Ed, or what?
In your social setting.
So conversations among your friends where maybe you learned something and then took action from that. So you were informed by the people around you, and then moved on
I was thinking the other way around.
Yeah.
Or the other way around?
I was thinking the other way around. You're surrounded by people who have good intentions, and somehow you probably have brought those out. And so I'm curious what sort of conversations have seeded action in your friends, and found out that it mattered, that it was worth speaking up for.
Where you have made a change.
Huh.
I think a lot of what we have done has been based on that, the needs of others, whether it's our friends or not. I mean, Mike, when he gets with his buddies, is typically talking about Kiss.
Yeah, we talk about dumb stuff. But I think an example of Rena and O'Brien.
Rena O'Brien.
Having conversations about Treehouse when we did not know about Treehouse, and that was, that was a significant event of like, okay, well, hey, why don't you come down and.
Well, we got invited to Youth Care by Rena 10 years
That
ago.
too, right.
And that was, the start of that relationship, of her talking to me about the need of, what was going on with our homeless youth in the city. And I had no idea.
And then you're aware of it when you drive around, you see it, and it's just kind of sad. And we know how cold it is out there, right? I mean, and just hearing about the Orion Center just recently, I'm worried about that. But that's another thing. But that was a significant event, talking to Rena for sure about.
And then Rena, starting to do an event. I mean, not that Rena's the only person we talked to, but, she started to do an event with, she's a good one though, with Treehouse, and then that brought us into Treehouse. And, I mean, not everything that we do with our friends is just about our philanthropy, but, I mean, it does bring up, what is in need. Our friend Jennifer Jaff bringing to our attention, like, how many people were getting denied health care coverage, for much needed medical treatments that they were, dying over because their insurance companies wouldn't pay them. To us wanting to then, advocate for that,
Sort of on that same, the band, you and the band have influenced, your fans have started a foundation of their own, Wish List, which I think is a sort of an interesting concept, because it's definitely attached to you and your name, but you don't really have any control over it. You certainly probably have some influence. So what are some of the sort of the goods and the bads about that, that you've sort of inspired and leveraged, but you really don't have any control over it specifically?
Yeah, that's a good question. Wish List, run by Laura Trapton, and started. It's a group of fans that had started this fundraising pre-parties at our shows of their own volition, and have raised over like $500,000 in the last 10 years of just doing,
maybe closer to $1 million.
Maybe that now, I'm not sure, but in Seattle at a bar before the show, they'll raise $2,500 for a homeless shelter or this, and I think they do it based upon what they read we're into, our band. whether it's Ed's, what he's into, or Jeff, or Stone, or Matt. And there's a wide array of other causes that they support and that are not vocal about. But Wishlist has come of the passion and the caring that I see our fans have with each other. And I've not seen this in any other band situation before, and it's kind of unique in terms of our fans will travel to shows together, with their families, and they'll stay with each other, and people have gotten married at our shows, people meet each other, you know, kids are born, there's all sorts of stuff that goes on. Maybe not at the show, but maybe direct after, 9 months before so there's an amazing passion that goes along with our fans that I think we're all aware of. That being said, to walk the fine line of like, okay, here's a couple posters, but do they represent us or do they represent their own thing? Right. There's been times when it's crossed. You know, they've maybe made some T-shirts and things like that you got to get approval for that kind of stuff. You know, with copyrights and all, and so that sometimes you have to kind of talk to them about that. But generally, they're pretty respectful and they know the lines.
The band doesn't want to control them. I mean, there's a lot of conversations about this.
Yeah.
The band loves the grassrootsness of this organization, and they know that if the band takes that on, that loses that. Now it becomes the band's entity, like Vitology or anything else.
Right.
So there's always that kind of conversation with them, like what you're doing is amazing, but I think it goes to show that it's all truly the inspiration of these guys, just like I've been inspired. I mean, when we had our conversation, I mean, Mike and I have been together since I was probably way too young, but, you know, I mean...
He was 22, I was 34.
But I grew up around, I mean, I've really grown up around this band as well, like, and been inspired by them, and, you know, everything I have tried to be in this community is an inspiration of what these guys have done before me, what Nicole has done, what they continue to do, you know.
And back to the wish list, I think it's just it's endemic of how the passionate the fans are, and it's an interesting thing that it's better that they do it themselves because it gives them something to do the day of the show that kind of makes them.
It empowers them.
Yeah, right, or feeling of worth and connectedness with each other and with us and our music, and it's a neat thing that came of our as a outcropping of our band success.
I agree. That's really wonderful.
So we very seldom have standing ovations, but I think the McCreadys certainly deserve one.
Oh, thank you.